everybody, welcome back. So our next session brings together speakers from Liverpool Institute for Performing Arts, the University of Lincoln and Victoria University with Technology One, and they're going to discuss their journey to overcoming legacies and driving meaningful and positive change. So over to you, Cheryl.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. My name's Cheryl Watson, and I am the VP of Education in the UK for Technology One. Firstly, thank you very much for taking the time to come to this session. I know we're late in the afternoon. I have the pleasure of running this session today, but I am very pleased to say I'm not on this stage on my own. I have my colleague on the left-hand side here, Olivia Roberts. So Olivia is our General Manager for Student Management. She's also a familiar face probably to some in the room as she's from the sector in the UK. Before we get into the throes of the session, I'm really excited to introduce our panel of speakers today, who are here to share their insight from the coalface, implementing projects back in their institutions, but hopefully leaving you with some real tangible insights that you can take back and make use of. So allow me to introduce the panel. I've been told not to use anybody's Sunday name, so I am just going to introduce their first names. We have Mike from LIPA. We have Steve from Chester. Give us a wave, Steve. Trev from the University of Buckingham, and Alex from the University of Lincoln. So we're really thrilled that we have a mix of perspectives on our panel today, both from the IT and the business side of the institution. They are all at very different stages of their journey, so not only from an institutional change perspective, but also from their journey with Technology One and what we can provide. Now, we're not going to focus too much on the Technology One perspective of that journey during the session because we really want this to be a very nice conversation. But you will see if you've been handed a brochure pack on your way in, there are some inserts in that pack, and that will give you a little bit more context about the individuals, their institutions, and what they are doing at the moment. So, and I have forgotten to click on the slide. I did say I needed to remember to click on that. Now, before we move on to introduce the session, I would just like to give a massive shout out to them for joining us today, because as you will come to understand, most of them are in the mix of a very live project back in their institution. So yeah, thank you very much sincerely for helping us out today. So let's briefly introduce the session. So we at Technology One have listened to lots and lots of feedback over the last 6 to 12 months. And it's really that we want to embrace today. And that feedback has been that colleagues in the room really value an open and honest conversation. We know that transformation of some kind in the UK is no longer a question of if, but when and how. Institutions are looking at the best ways that they can set themselves apart and their staff and their students up for that future success. Now, quite often as partners in the sector, we are guilty of showcasing a customer journey when it is long past delivered, and quite often very long after the fact. But we feel it's important to bring to the forefront that knowledge that could be lost. So what are the lessons learned that we learn through those phases of change, and what does that look like? So as part of the session today, we're going to explore the phases of change. We're going to explore those phases with our panel. We're going to look at their ambitions, their challenges, their lessons learned, and what it takes to make meaningful change last. We're going to throw it to you for a little bit of Q&A. And if you don't get time to get your questions answered, we are very, very simply out of these doors and to the right. And you can come and speak to us at any point. So let's talk about the phases of change. So we know that change is not just about reaching a destination, but it's about embracing the journey that comes along with that. Depicted here in our very nice graphic is the representation that lots of what it takes to get change moving is under the surface. It is unseen by many of the people that aren't in the thick of it. And just assessing the lay of the land and prioritising where change can take place is often really complex in your institutions. Each phase has its own unique challenges, opportunities, and need for differing strategies, and over what can be a really long and sustained period of time in many cases. So if we think about phase one, that contemplation, this is all about building awareness. Everything begins with this awareness phase. It's the recognition of a challenge or an opportunity. And this is about fostering clarity. So why is change necessary and what are the potential benefits of it? Then we move into our exploration or preparation phase. So this is once the need for change is understood. What are our possibilities? How do we gather the best bits of information? How do we assess the risks of that change? But this is the greatest area for collaboration. The communication and engagement are key in this phase. Then we go into exploration or preparation, as we called it. So once the, oh, no, we're not. We're into action, sorry. So we're into implementation. So now it's time to act. We put those plans into motion. This requires coordination, adaptability, and resilience. This is where challenges arise, and it's important to understand and share how we navigate those challenges and celebrate those milestones along the way. And then in the final phase, we've called it maintenance and value realization. But this is about sustainment. So how do we make sure that the change is lasting? How do we embed new habits, make new systems or practices part of that everyday life? So each of our panelists, as we've talked about, is at a very different stage in their journey. And it's represented here on the chart. There we go. So all of our panelists are post-contemplation, so they've done the assessment of what the challenge or the opportunity is, and they're into that action phase. This is really important for us because as a provider, we're often not doing just a point-to-point project. We're often doing what we call a program of work. We're working with institutions over 3, 4, in Alex's case, over 7 years now. You know, these are long, long projects, and it's really important that the partnership is right. And we're with you, and we're in it. So before we start, we like to make sure you're awake. So if you could just show a hand in the air if you are at some point in time looking at a change project at the moment in the institutions that you are in. It's a nerve-wracking moment, that moment, because nobody could put their hands up, but I'm grateful all of you did, so that's great. Yeah, so it's everywhere. Okay, so we're going to throw to our panel now, and we're going to start with contemplation.
Thank you very much, Cheryl. Good afternoon, everyone. So first part of our journey is around contemplation, and that every change begins with an awareness of the need. Michael, I'm going to come to you first at LIPA, and you're a bit of a pro at this transformation malarkey, so it's very impressive. But can you tell me why was change necessary at LIPA?
Well, we're a small specialist institution, and our current student record system was struggling, really. There was quite a lot of configuration in it. It was really difficult for us. It wasn't delivering the data-driven sort of institution that we needed to be. Alongside that, we had decided to go for degree awarding powers. And we don't have a huge IT team. We have quite a small, agile administration. So I guess it was a challenge, but equally it was an opportunity for us. And part of our project for degree awarding powers was to make the administration fit for purpose, and that was pivotal on the system.
Okay, and part of that, I mean, there's a big opportunity there if you're going for degree awarding powers, but the strategic ambition of the institutions, obviously very key there, and the kind of the whole undertaking that transformation. What did that feel like?
It was quite nervous, really, because we're such a small institution and don't have a huge, big technical base in terms of the IT staff. But we needed to do it. It needed to change. We couldn't just stay still. If we stayed still, so a lot of the things that we did, so the HESA return was basically the original system, but with a lot of sticking plasters and workarounds on it. And so we needed a system that was really going to deliver what we wanted it to do.
That sounds very familiar. I'm sure colleagues will understand that. How did you decide where to start?
We wanted a clean sheet. I've implemented a couple of student record systems.
Yes, you're
a pro at this now.
And often what had happened is that we'd start you'd be by either academic staff or administrative staff who were fixed in their ways, would want to try and engineer the systems to match those processes, that they were comfortable and that they really knew and how to do it. So this, because of the size of our institution, and I'd taken a more senior role as well as the registrar, I was able to say, actually, we are going to implement the system vanilla out of the box, and we will change our processes to match it, which, you know, there's quite a sharp intake of breath from quite a lot of staff on that. But once they'd got over that shock and we'd gone for it, we were then pushing it open doors as well. So that's how we started the process. It was to say, we need a system that we can just simply take out of the box, implement, and we'll deliver it to the staff.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you very much. Steve, I'll come to you next. At Chester, how did you make the case for change, and did you find any resistance?
So at Chester, the case for change was quite a quick process for us last year. I think we started talking to suppliers around May, and by September, we'd established a business case, brought that in front of our executive, and once we started to really build out that business case, it became quite clear that this was the right thing for us to do.
Okay. Any of the key learnings that colleagues in the audience might...
I think probably just make sure that your key stakeholders are involved in that from the beginning, and that they understand that this is a process that is going to happen. I think that there was probably a bit of a disbelief that we were actually going to change our student record system. So it was possibly only after that decision was taken that people really started to engage with us.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you. Cheryl.
Okay, so I'm going to throw to Trev, please. Trev has a really unique perspective of this, having come in from out of sector, and now at the University of Buckingham. What would you share with colleagues in terms of setting yourselves up for success? Because you're now midway through your implementation of an enterprise-wide.
We've just put finance in last November. We're in the middle of HR and payroll currently, and we've just started on the student journey. So the key for success on a lot of this is actually, as we've said earlier, is all the stuff underneath that you don't see. So it's all the pre-work. So it's understanding where your data comes from, what process is currently in place, because we have 4 different faculties and each of them work in slightly different ways. So we need to understand how they're working and bring all that together. So one of my BAs has spent 6 months mapping out our student journey. And so we know where that's coming from and where we need to get to. We've also looked at what applications support that student journey. So when we actually execute on student management, we know what applications we can take out of the equation as well. And then obviously, going back to the HESA returns and ILR returns, we need to understand where the data is that's driving those returns as well. And then the 4th element in that is what T1 student management is going to give us. So we've created a whole model around that. So we have a gap analysis for the whole organisation of where we are currently, where we want to go, and the bits that will drop out either side of that model as well.
So, I mean, you've done a lot of that, I guess, underground work, but what were the challenges you faced in sort of preparing the organisation? So we talk about the collaboration, the hearts and minds type.
It's the engagement, absolutely, the engagement across all the staff. So what we've done, all the decisions to actually purchase TAC1 were made before my time. So I can't get blamed for that, so that's all good.
You got thrown in.
But what we've done is, with the student management, we brought you guys back in and basically did a re-sales pitch to the whole university for the academic staff and the professional staff, so that they could see the end result of where we're going for. And so they understand that model is the future. And they can understand when we talk about different elements within the build process, they can see where they're going to get to. So they've got that vision of what we're trying to get to, which is really important.
And how does that resonate, Steve, Mike, with what you found in terms of that initial journey?
Yeah, I think probably making that sort of like sales pitch to the rest of the university has been what we've been doing over the last probably 3 months now, as we've started to introduce everyone else into that project, because they weren't involved right at the beginning, and it's something that we've had to catch them up on.
Good. So now we're on to action. So the institution is finally on its way, and everyone's convinced it's going to all happen. Alex, I'll come to you first at Lincoln. As Cheryl mentioned, you've been on the journey for quite some time. What advice would you give to institutions who are contemplating this change, to help enable that success?
I think for me, the key bit of advice, and I know this is something that everybody says is absolutely implementing a System 101, is get your data sorted. One of the big challenges that we faced was that we didn't clean our data properly before we did our migration, and then that then really brought down the implementation in terms of the reputation around the university, and I think we created a lot of challenges for ourselves internally through not really doing that focus on the data, and it's one of those things that going into any kind of implementation, sort out your change management and sort out your data. And I think we thought we were on it, and we weren't. So I just think you can't overdo the work around that side of things.
And if Lincoln were to do it all over again, how would you do it differently?
We would definitely address the change management side. As I think the data side has to always be underpinning it, but as you said, we were on quite a long journey, and we did start off involving lots and lots of stakeholders, but along the way it turned into a bit of an IT project, and we lost some of that understanding and change piece internally. So I think we would certainly really focus on keeping everybody with you throughout the journey, because we certainly lost some people. They were with us at the beginning, and then they popped up at the end, but they didn't quite join us throughout the whole thing.
And I think that's the challenge in our universities, that there are all sorts of different shapes and sizes, the big and the small, and kind of you've got that broader group of stakeholders to try and facilitate. Just talking about enterprise-wide systems then, Trevor, coming to you around Buckingham, what was the driver for that, looking at the kind of the whole enterprise view?
So it is trying to get, again, picking up on the data. Data's key to all of this, that we're moving towards, it is a business at the end of the day, and we've got to make sure the data's in the right space. And I think the other piece is about the integrations of the different applications as well. So it's bringing all that together to actually give that holistic view of for the university from a systems point of view and a data point of view.
Yeah, and I know you've delivered projects like this in other sectors before. What's the kind of key difference between a point-to-point implementation and an enterprise one?
Enterprise, the clue's in the name. It is across the entire organisation that you're dealing with, and you have to make sure you bring everyone on that journey. As Alex said, it's so important to have that communication and that open communication. And we learnt from our implementation of the finance system, we didn't get that quite right. And so when we're doing HR and payroll, we're going out and proactively essentially selling the system out to the organisation. So when it actually lands, it's not a surprise. So they can see it, they can touch it, they can sort of poke it with a stick sort of thing, and understand the shape of what's coming. And I think with an enterprise solution as well, with T1, it's the look and feel of the whole thing. So it could be finance, it could be student, it could be HR, payroll. The look and feel from the end user point of view is the similar sort of experience, and I think that's really key as well.
So it's very familiar to people. Mike, from your perspective, what do you think the long-term value of true transformation is?
I think for us, it's the fact that, like Trevor was saying, it's that familiarity. We have a small, agile administration. They see, because we're going for HR, finance and the student system together. So it's that familiarity. I think it's the fact that our staff have been heavily engaged in the whole of the process. They're with it. I was concerned initially that there might have been a bit of a culture piece because people have been very fixed in their ways. But actually that's not been the case at all. People have just taken to the system really well, engaged with it really well. And I think for us, it's that single system, single point of truth for everything.
Yeah, brilliant.
Okay. So we're going to talk about, I guess, the sustainment. How do we make sure this enables the future state of the institution? Alex, if I could come to you, being our longest standing customer, what would have happened if you hadn't made the change, if you hadn't have done that? What would that have meant now?
We would have, in terms of staff time, we would still be doing so many manual processes. We didn't really have any student self-service prior to implementing the system. Lots and lots of paper-based processes, lots of manual requesting for students and things like that. And that's one of the things that we've really been able to see from a benefits realisation perspective, is that self-service element, which has really freed up staff time to do much more value-added stuff. And the automation side of things has been really important to us as well. So I think we were already feeling, before we made the change, that we were behind the curve in terms of the digital offering that we were making to our students. And I think if we hadn't made that change, we would really be feeling that we were so far behind by now. And I think that's what we've really seen as a benefit.
Great. And Steve, if I could come to you from what you're looking to drive at Chester, although early on in the project and you have done curriculum, for you around the student experience, I know the technology aspect can often be seen as a sort of separate part, but for you, what is this project about enabling?
I think it is about enabling a much better experience for the students. Customer service for the students is at the heart of our target operating model. So we really want to use this to drive that forward and give them the best possible experience that they can, to give them that kind of one-stop shop for their data and for their interactions with our systems.
Great. Trevor, who has been your most challenging set of stakeholders? Not a loaded question.
Not really, not really at all. You could say the academics.
There was a laugh in the room there. I don't know if that was intentional.
It's a different model. The challenge is to get everyone at the same place at the same time. Be it the professional staff running the university from a back office side of things to the academics as well. And it's bringing them on that journey together so that they can see the benefit of what we're trying to deliver. And as we said, it's all about, at the end of the day, it's all about the student experience. Is that easy for the student to use the systems? Is it easy for the academics and the business teams to use the systems? And I think that's really important to get everyone in that same space. So it is a challenge with all these implementations to get everyone at the same time, at the same place, to understand the why. Why are we doing this?
Thank you. So I'm going to ask each of you individually, and this is the one part of this conversation we have prepped. But biggest challenge and biggest triumph so far?
I think the biggest challenge has been, and I think that's because of our size, business as usual alongside the implementation of the project. But saying that, the staff have been so involved with it that actually it's been easier than I expected to get their engagement and their input into it. I think the biggest triumph so far is not having pushback from academic staff, not having pushback from the professional services staff, because they actually do see the benefits of what we're doing and they can see the reasons why.
Right. Steve?
So I think probably trying to convince the organisation that we should replace admissions, student records, finance and scheduling all in the same programme.
Both a challenge and a triumph.
It's the same answer to both of them. Yeah.
Okay, great.
So again, the challenge is getting everyone in the right space at the right time. The win was finance. We dropped finance in as planned, on time. At the end of the first week, we had 10 calls on the help desk, which was pretty impressive because I've done this before in different lives, in different careers, and it's gone hideously wrong. Absolute nightmare. We couldn't do anything. So that was absolutely a real win, but we'd prepped it and we'd done the homework beforehand. So we'd done all the testing, the training, the engagement with the staff. So yeah, it is that stuff that's under the covers that you can't see that makes a difference.
Alex?
I think that the challenge is the data, as I've already talked about. I think for me, we're starting to see some real wins on some of our harder to reach teams now that, and it was one of the things I always hoped for when we implemented the system, was that people would start looking at it and say, well, that team's got that bit of automation, can I have it for my team? I want to use that self-service thing that you've done for them, for me, and some of the teams that were sort of, we couldn't possibly move away from paper and we have to see every student face to face and take their blood pressure each time.
Yeah.
We're actually now getting people coming forward and saying, can we use your system? Can we use the system? Can you help us to move to a digital version of our service? And that's a real positive.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Right.
Brilliant.
Thank you very much. So although we have in this conversation focused on our set of UK customers very kindly talking to us today, we did make the point right at the start that this is about a partnership and it's a very long-term journey that we are embarking on with our customers. So we did just want to showcase, unfortunately Stuart couldn't be here with us today from Victoria University, but he has been a long-standing customer of Technology One for a number of years. And I guess what his video depicts is that this is an evolution of change. This isn't just about getting you to that point. It is about how we then move on that forward together as a united front. So we've just got a short video which Stuart has prepared for us, which we will just show now.
But now, because we've got that uplift in revenue, we've built trust within our organisation and we can really focus on that next phase of delivery. Hi everyone, I'm Stuart Hilliard, Chief Digital Officer and Executive Director Campus Services at Victoria University in Melbourne, Australia. Victoria University is a multi-campus university. We're based generally in the west of Melbourne, and that's our key gateway of how we continue to help our community. So basically have 45,000 students, which is a combination of higher education and TAFE. The key priorities for my role is that I provide the campus services for the university, and what we're trying to do is be relentlessly customer-centric and particularly student-centric, and bringing together the physical and digital infrastructure to make that really harmonised within our environment and future thinking. With caps on international numbers, there is a real need to be competitive and work smartly on what we offer as services, but also how we support our students to make sure that we are absolutely getting great outcomes for them in their learning and their campus experience. Recently we did a project around simplifying our emissions system, and what we focused on initially was a minimum viable product delivery. That gave us the foundations, and from that we've already seen the benefits of conversion from application to offer to enrolment, which has had an uplift in our revenue. But now, because we've got that uplift in revenue, we've built trust within our organisation and we can really focus on that next phase of delivery. Yeah, being a long-term Technology One partner, we now have the core foundations of the One Education solution, and particularly with the Syllabus Plus solution and timetabling, all within the SaaS platform. What that allows us to do is really start to think about the combination of the data assets that we have and how that can not only drive data-driven decisions, but more importantly, where we can partner with Technology One to really drive that next innovation around artificial intelligence. I think the other component that I'm quite excited about is now that we have the core platform in place, we can sit down and partner and roadmap out where we want to go together, and then strategically look at how Technology One can assist us through that journey.
I'll say thank you very much to Stuart, but he's obviously not here. But yeah, thank you very much. Hopefully that has been an interesting session for you today.